That's called a silent contract.
I changed your name and everything for you on here so
Thank
everyone knows who
you.
you are.
Thank you. So this is the Heart of Courage Hour, and today we are on still on the letter O of the acronym Courage. And today we will be talking about observe, observing or observation, whichever form of the word that you would like to think about as we formulate ideas and share insights around how does observe or observing increase our capacity to have courage to get out of our comfort zone and to grow. So I always start out with the definition from the dictionary
Mhm.
of observe. So it is to see, watch, perceive, or notice. And so when I read that, I was thinking, in Fearless Living, we have the 12 steps to freedom. And the first step is awareness. And so I thought observing and awareness are almost synonyms. They're not exactly, but they certainly are related. That observation brings awareness, right? And
Mhm.
that awareness is the first step to change. So I thought that was interesting. And then guess what the antonym, the opposite of observe is? What would you think?
Not observe.
Not
To
observe. Yeah,
ignore.
sure. And so the word for not observing is ignoring.
Ooh.
So do we often ignore our feelings? We
Mm.
ignore our environment, like I would go about not even noticing or observing the beauty around me. Do we ignore our relationships? There's so many things we ignore. And that just hit me. That word really hit me. Kind of like a gut feeling of ignore. There was a visceral response to that word. So I thought that was interesting. Another definition is to regard with attention, especially so as to see or learn something. And I thought that was pretty powerful because that brought it into not just seeing it, but what can I learn from that observation? What's my perception? What's my insight from that observation? And again, the synonym was to take note.
Mm.
And I know most of us that are here this morning are avid note takers. So that was an interesting thing. And again, the antonym is ignore. And then another one was to state by way of comment or to remark.
Mm.
And so the synonym would be to mention, to say. So not only, again, to observe and be aware, but then to take that in and then speak, say, what is my understanding? What have I learned, etc. So um, I thought those were the ones that really talked about. Also talked about fulfilling or following, like um, observing sometimes is being obedient. Like we might say we observe the commandments, we observe the law. So again, that would be another way to fulfill or follow. Um, to show regard for by some appropriate procedure, like to observe Easter, to observe a birthday, to observe an anniversary. So a way to keep and celebrate. So that kind of opens up maybe to some discussion around how important encourage, and developing and being courageous the word observe might be. So I hope that I wanted to do is just have those words percolate and
Mhm.
maybe create some thoughts for you, insights that we can then share to build each other's understanding and willingness to be observant, learn and act upon what we observe. So that's kind of be the premise of what we do today in terms of our discussion. So I'll give you a few more synonyms for observe because I also like to look up in the thesaurus, and they are to detect, discover, examine, inspect, look at, monitor, pay attention to, recognize, regard, scrutinize,
Mm.
study, view, watch, and witness. So those are more synonyms to expand Man, that's a powerful word.
Hmm.
A lot of information around that word. So let's just open up the discussion with something you know was sparked in your thought processes or in your heart as I read through those definitions and synonyms. So who would like to start? Leah.
Well, I immediately keyed into the word ignore, which was an interesting antonym. Because to me, and I looked up the definition while you were talking, and ignore is according to this, an intentional to pay attention. Like you're definitely, it's more of an active word. And or to literally intentionally disregard. And so when I think of observe, sometimes I feel like that's passive. It's sort of happening. You don't even sometimes know that it's happening. Your observations are coming in. You might be processing it, but when you ignore something, that's actually an intentional act. And so I
Mm,
found that fascinating to think about it that way. And I love the part about observing with the attention to see and learn something. I feel like that's definitely how I live my life is I'm always
mhm.
learning and growing and seeing.
Yeah, I love that. I think that is really interesting about ignoring being an intentional choice. It definitely is. I mean, when you think of times in your life that you have ignored,
Mhm.
um, like I was thinking of I've been reading a lot about compassionate communication and meeting our needs and just really doing a study with Elizabeth about that.
Mhm.
And so I'm thinking ignoring our needs and ignoring the behaviors of others that are not appropriate, that cross our boundaries. Ignoring that is a choice that's self-destructive.
Mm.
So many times ignoring things it can be proactive, uh, but more than likely it's self-destructive.
Mm.
And so that word really perked my thinking as well because it is an act. And when you talked about learning, then observing becomes active as well, right?
Mhm.
It's no longer passive. Yeah, great.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. What else have we got?
Well, I think of myself as a very observant person. Um, and that has been somewhat of a challenge in my marriage because my husband is not observant, as
Mhm.
whatever. And um, and so I constantly feel ignored. But I don't think it's intentional. So maybe there is a different word I can put on that um, that that can shift my thinking around him not noticing things um, and give more weight to when he does observe something. So, but that was one thought that came to mind. Also, witness. I feel like I stand as a witness a lot of the time for other people.
Mhm.
I witness for them their growth, their process, and then I acknowledge it or reflect it back to them. Um, and so that could be part of the speaking, part of observation. Um, and then also just my kids, being aware of what's going on with them, observing their mood or their language. Um, and behaviors and how those shift or what could be motivating them. Um, Different things like that. As a mom or a wife or in any relationship, kind of being aware of what's going on with the person and how you can support or do should you, or I don't want to say should, but could you reach out, um, and say, hey, I see you. I think, a lot of people just want to be, want to know that they're seen. Um, and so that's one thing about Facebook, I think, is that we are observing a lot, what is going on in people's lives. And, um, and I think that that is one reason why people like really like likes, because then they have like a measurable, evidence that they are being observed.
Mhm.
Um, and stuff. And it's almost weird for me sometimes. Like I was posting when Daniel was learning how to drive, I was posting videos of him being all nervous and all this kind of stuff. And like people came up to me and like talked to me about those videos. And I'm like, dang, people really are like watching these or are interested in my life. You know, like it's not just me creating this, having Facebook be this chronological, like, you know, picture keeper or, event keeper for me. But other people, care. Also, I love people watching. Um, like Disneyland is a very fun place to people watch because you got people from all walks of, life and all over the world come to Disneyland. And how do they interact as a family? Are they all wearing matching shirts? What is this experience that they're trying to create for themselves and their families, and I get to make up all of these fun stories. But I think also what came to mind was observation can lead to assuming. And
Mm.
so that's, something that we, we need to be mindful of as well, is that we don't assume um, what people are thinking or their intention or what's going on with them, because our observations are coming in through our filters
Mhm.
and not necessarily true mm,
Yeah.
to what we're deducting from what we're observing. So that came to mind as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Because definitely we're making it up, right? When we're
Yeah.
making up stories, we do love to people watch at Disneyland. So we'll see a little
Mhm.
family, doing something, and we'll make up a story based upon our experiences, But it's not malicious. It's fun. Yeah, Beck, what have you got to share with us?
Yeah, there's so much in what everyone's already shared that I'm just like, oh yeah, I can see for myself um through Kelly's story of, like the people in our house, like what are the things that we tell ourselves about what we do or don't observe, and like how we notice their behaviors or their actions or lack thereof, or um that's been a big shift for me over the last, I'll say, 6 months, and has been, instead of sitting in this room and only hearing what's happening, right? That's only one way. I don't know if it does actually doesn't say to hear, it says to see and watch. So, right, like that's actually probably not even observing. I would just be hearing what would be happening outside my workspace, and I would start assuming
Mhm.
the intention and like I can't see body language. I can't really, I can hear, what I would put my filter on as frustration and anger, or, you know, a lot of big emotions, we'll just say. And right then I start to react and respond inside about like, oh my gosh, what is all this stuff happening outside? But I'm not actually seeing it. So that's, what I was thinking about with Observe is how I've intentionally been choosing to either not go out there and start inserting myself to what I don't know anything about, because that's how I was operating. I would jump out there, be the mama bear, try and do all the things and like solve the problem, superwoman. And it was diabolical. Like it was the opposite of what was helpful. And I didn't know that for the longest time. I was finally like, I'm the problem. I'm the problem. I was then observing myself to see like, I actually don't know what happened. I actually don't know the intention of the way that it's being spoke. And one of the things that I've been just keep reminding and saying when I have a chance to tell people is that we only like take on like 7% of the words that we say is actually what's important. The rest is tone and body language. So if we can't observe and actually see and watch something, right, then we're actually missing a large percentage of the understanding to actually receive the messaging that the person wants to convey, which is huge. That's why video is so important versus only having audio, because we don't actually know the body language, or if we don't know the people, maybe their tone is totally off to what we would recognize as, positive or uplifting, and they don't even understand. I mean, I was fired for perception years ago. Like I was perceived as someone that was not cut out for customer service because I wouldn't adjust my face accordingly, right? So people observed me as the B word and very like brass, and like I wasn't communicating in a way that was anyway. So the way that we perceive, that was one of the pieces of the definition, was perceive. So right, that perceiving is that assumption and that that story making that we were just talking about that really comes up. But I really like that even the very end of what you were sharing, Terry, was like to remember that it's about, it can be celebrate and to keep something, to observe a holiday, to observe, something good in our life. And as a photographer, like that is something that I can definitely relate to and see. When you said that, I was like, oh, heck yeah. Like that's a great way to look at the way that I observe living life, is to capture it and like see how I see the world through a camera lens.
Yeah. 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 Thank you so much for sharing that. I was looking further on the page, I was looking in the dictionary and it had other antonyms besides ignore. It had neglect, overlook, pass by, forget, disregard. Yeah, so I think sometimes it's really helpful to look at antonyms as well as synonyms, but perceive being one of the strong synonyms. I'm glad you brought that up. It also has discernment, which I think is a really powerful word. I mean, words have power and they have different power for each of us based upon our filters and our experience. But discernment is one that's really in the maybe the past 5 or 6 years that I've really thought about in making choices, making decisions, discerning between my head and my heart, discerning between alignment. Does this align with my beliefs or my values? Because I'll observe things that other people think are just fine, that offend me personally. And am I willing to have the courage to leave and not be judgmental, but know that that's not a place for me to feel safe or for me to feed my spirit? And so I think that takes a lot of courage to have the discernment and then take the action without judgment. So it's not, you can watch whatever you want to watch. You can do whatever you want to do. That's, you have that free agency. But I also can have the courage to say, that's not for me. And I think that's part of observation and part of perception and discernment are all, I think it's a much more rigorous word than maybe it's given credit.
Yeah, it's very deep, the word. There's a lot
Yeah,
of depth with it.
yeah. That's what we talk about this a lot. Beck and I do that. Words matter. Words really matter.
Mm,
And it's sometimes you can say something with an intention of maybe frivolity or intention of releasing something in a room, and it hits somebody else like a rock. And
yeah,
and by observing, we can see those reactions, right? And
yeah,
then we can, uh, soften the delivery, or you can't take it back.
no.
You can soften the delivery, or you can talk to that person privately, and say, I noticed that really, you had a reaction. Can we talk about that?
Mm,
Yeah. Yeah, that happened on New Year's Eve for me. We were
mm,
we were playing games because we come together, a couple of my kids and they're all their kids and play games. Silly games like putting a Oreo on your forehead and trying to get it in your mouth. And they are so good at it because they played it so long, they can do it in like 5 seconds. They can get the Oreo in their mouth. But for some reason something came up about wrinkles and someone in the room said, "Oh, you mean like Nana?" Well, yeah. Okay, I have wrinkles. I'm 80 years old, but that hit me really hard,
mm,
because I felt it was a judgment. Uh,
mm,
so I didn't laugh, but I didn't, I just went on. But if that person had been paying attention, they would have seen and observed that hurt my feelings. So I later talked to that person, and they said, "Oh, they didn't mean it that way, of course." They kind of disregarded my feelings, which I observed and thought, well, that's information for me, right?
mhm.
Um, but words really matter. And so when we're being observant, we can see how words fall on people. And our intention is not always the way they're received.
It's interesting because I was thinking about something Kelly said about her, when people don't observe things because they're generally not observant. But I wonder if, because you know how they talk about your reticular activator, and sometimes if that's activated, you observe things that you haven't seen before that were there all along, right? That's the whole premise of that. But the other thing is, I think people observe what is important to them. And
Mm,
so some people who are really busy or just are thinking a lot or whatever don't observe things because it actually is a distraction to them and they need to stay focused, if that makes any sense. Like,
yes.
so I think of my husband who is ridiculously smart and he has all his list of things to do. And he works really hard to just stay to that list because that's just how he's wired. I don't know how he married me because I am the opposite of that. And maybe I ground him. I don't know. But we've been together 43 years, so I guess it's
It
working.
works.
But but he could go into the refrigerator and see nothing to eat when I can have a whole meal put together in 5 seconds by looking in the refrigerator. But that's not on his at radar for him. So, but he can walk into a room and find the one piece of something he's been looking for. So I think there is some intention involved in observation that we need to. It's much more active when we're looking for things. I don't know if that makes any sense.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that too because it brings to the point of we can practice
Mhm.
and train ourselves to look for the things that are more fulfilling for us or more beneficial for our family life or whatever that is we can choose change the pattern of, well, I don't even notice that. Well, it's a choice to then continue to ignore or be passive about those things when other people bring it to our attention. That's where I think the intentional piece of ignore comes in, is like, well, we don't know what we don't know until we know it.
Mm.
So then when someone brings it to our attention, then that's where the friction can be, because now is it an active choice to continue
Mm.
to ignore and not be observant of the thing, or pay attention, and notice those things that someone's maybe saying multiple times, that's where the challenge really is. How do we help people change their idea of, well, I just don't pay attention. Well, we can choose to change that pattern, when it's, I guess, more meaningful to them. I don't know.
Well, I just thought of back in the day, probably, I'm thinking when I first started personal development, there was a book, I can't remember who wrote it, but he talked in the book about catching people doing things right. It was a management book.
Yeah.
And I think about my children, how quickly we are to focus on the things that they're not, like, jump on them when they're not doing something or when they did something bad. But what if we caught them doing things good? Would they do more of that? And that requires a different observation. So it just came to me that that's something I need to focus more on at home, so that my boys, including my husband, feels heard and seen, because he put the dishes away. And even though for him that feels like something we should celebrate, I do it every single day, but I will celebrate it with him because he did it, and maybe he'll do it again.
Yeah. Yeah, there was a real, and I can't remember his name either, but there was a real movement in education in the classroom. There was a whole catch him being good.
Mhm.
It was always easier for me to do in my classroom than it was with my own children. So thank you for reminding me. But yeah, it feels good, even when it's something that you do all the time. When someone sees and observes that, they acknowledge it.
Mhm.
And I think that's a really good reminder, Leah, that when it comes to observe the things that people are doing that shows growth. That, we call it acknowledgement,
Mhm.
but it comes from awareness and it comes from observation.
Mhm.
Yeah. And being willing to do that. It's like I really have a connection with clouds and the sky. I always notice the nuances in the clouds, and I can name the, different kinds of clouds. And I love when there's dark clouds and white clouds and sky and blue sky. And, I just always notice it. And I'll say something to whomever I'm with, and they're like, oh, it's like they've never looked up at the sky. And so it's interesting to notice what we observe
Mhm.
and what we appreciate, and acknowledge what that does for us. That might then ignite someone else's desire, to make those observations as well. I also walk looking down a lot because I don't have the best balance, and my doctor told me if I fall down, I'll break. So I'm very conscious of not falling, which sometimes keeps me from being very observant. And so I've
Mm.
been more conscious lately because I've been going to physical therapy, improving my shoulder and my posture at the same time. And as I've worked on my posture and standing up straight, I've noticed that I'm not feeling the need to look down so much. And
Mm.
I'm seeing so much more,
Ooh.
observing so much more, and maybe even participating in more smiles, more connections, with people because I'm not looking down. Yeah, a lot to observe around our environment.
Yeah, for sure. I had something come to mind, but I forgot it, so it may come back.
Oh, sorry.
Mm.
Hate when that happens. I
Happens
know
Yeah.
to me a lot.
when I was depressed, I had a really bad case of depression at one point, and when I started to come out of it, I noticed my observation skills came back. Like, I didn't notice the trees, I didn't notice the sky, but when I was coming out of the fog of depression, I was starting to see things again. So I feel like that's something I didn't even think about until not too long ago. So,
Yeah.
Yeah, I remembered. So, it's really fun when you go with someone and do something for the first time. Or you see something through your kid's eyes or something like that. Because I think when we see something often, then we start glazing over, we start not seeing those smaller details or fun things. Like I recently went to Disneyland with someone and it was their first time being there.
mm,
And so I wanted them to see all of the things that you might not, because you don't know they're there or whatnot. Like in Fantasyland, above the Snow White ride, every so often the queen, she's like in the top
The
above it,
tower. Yeah.
and yeah, and the curtains open and she's standing there. Right? And then the curtains close and stuff. And so I position her right where, she can see it, and I'm like, just wait. And then, the curtains open and she's standing there and she's like, oh, right? So it's like seeing those things for the first time, or experiencing something, or yourself experience something for the first time. And it made me think of this movie. I can't remember what it was called, but with Brendan Fraser, where he like grows up in a bomb shelter.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
when he comes out and he like sees the sky for the first time, he's like just standing there staring at the sky, and people are coming up to him and they're like, "What are you looking at?" Like
mm,
this whole crowd of people like come around him and they're like, "What are you looking at?" And he's like, "The sky." Like it's amazing because he had never seen the sky before.
yeah.
That's such a good
Right?
movie.
So, so it's like we take, I think, I don't know if it's we take it for granted, but when we see something all the time, we can miss those little things, or you know the those things that maybe aren't so obvious, like even like looking for the good, you know, because the things that your kids or your husband or those people that are around you a lot, like those things that they do that trigger you or annoy you or whatever, like those are easier to see because they're happening more often or because they're triggering you, right? And so it's like training yourself to see those times where they do notice you, or they do, something you ask, the first or second time, or, they surprise you with something, like we've been on vacation, right, for the last 2 weeks. And so, when the kids wake up, well, mostly the boys are the only ones who really come out of the room. The teenagers stay in the room until like late into the afternoon. But when the boys come out in the morning, sometimes they go straight to their games, or they go, straight to doing something. And then every once in a while, they'll come over and they'll sit with me and give me hugs,
Mm,
you know? And so, like, I've started to like try to anchor those moments in. Like I have one of my kids who likes to reminisce, I'll say, on the ways that I have messed up as a mother. And when she tells me something that I've done good or some positive way that I have affected her, I don't I am like surprised. And so this last week she brought up something that I had done that was good, and I was like, "Oh my gosh." And she's like, "Mom, I say things like this to you and you forget." And I'm like, "Okay, then I'm going to take extra time right now to savor this moment and anchor it in so that, it doesn't feel like it happens very seldomly." And then the next time that it happens, I'll anchor that in more. So yeah, so I think that we can get, I don't know, complacent, or we can get, um, I don't know what the right word is, but like the miracle of life or the beauty of things can kind of dull over time because we've seen them, so often. And I think that's actually one thing I think that I love about Disneyland, even though I've been there a lot. um, it's like you walk in and you like you're like instantly like the flowers are prettier and the streets are cleaner and everyone's happy and you're excited every time you turn the corner because you don't know if Goofy will be there or some band performing, or like you're like ready for it and you're like being uber aware of things. And but when you walk out of your bedroom, you're not necessarily doing that, right? So I think, so it's like, how can you bring that Disneyland feeling to, other experiences that you have? Um, you know, but like that can be dangerous when you go to Target. But I think that, like that can be a way of maybe slowly integrating that practice into your life of like, what can I notice today? Or what can I notice as I walk to get myself water this time, or
Mm.
whatever, because I sit at my desk a lot. And I'm in my room a lot. And so when I leave my room, like what can I notice? What can draw me out of my room more often because I'm noticing it and I want to be a part of it, or I want to witness it, or whatever it might be.
Mm, thank you, Kelly, for sharing that. Yeah.
Kelly, I have to share with you. This is my lovely planner that Miss Becky gave. And the thing that I put
Mhm.
down for receiving is compliments, because I'm not really good at receiving compliments. And when I was in,
Until now.
yeah,
Mhm.
until now, but when I was
Mhm.
in therapy, my first my main round of therapy when I got clean and sober, that was like 30 years ago. I didn't hear compliments at all, and I apologized all the time for my existence. I was constantly saying sorry, sorry, sorry. And one of the things I had to do was when somebody paid me a compliment, I had to touch my heart as a physical response to, like, I just received that. So I don't know if that helps you, but if you can be more aware, and then when you hear it, just no one has to understand what you're doing other than I just heard that and I'm receiving that. So that's something I do because I'm trying to be really aware when people say nice things about me. So
Yeah, I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you.
our tendency is to beat ourselves up, not to receive love and compliments, you know. That's the one of the challenges of being a perfectionist and overcoming that need to only be valuable when you're whatever perfect or whatever you're doing. Yeah. Yeah. And receiving compliments, I think, is a challenge. We talk a lot about that in Fearless Living, about being able to do that. You know, to receive compliments is a skill
mm,
that oftentimes has to be relearned because of our circumstances. You know, whether it's our parents, our peers, our siblings, whatever, that have led us to the point of feeling that we have no value. And if we have no value, then why would anybody compliment us, Yeah. It's hard. I mean, I don't like the word hard. It's a challenge. It's a
Mhm.
challenge, and it's an opportunity to be courageous, to accept compliments. It's easier to say, "Oh, that's nothing,"
Yeah,
or just, disregard,
right.
which is also an insult to the other person, right?
Yeah,
When
you
you
don't.
disregard a compliment, uh, they feel that. They feel that when you disregard it or minimize it.
Mhm.
Yeah, I've learned to practice just saying thank you. And put on a authentic smile, as authentic as I can. The more practice, the better, right? Yeah, well, our time is up. Uh, I just love this time that we get to spend together talking about courage and all of the components. And we're only talking about, a few of them really, but we're done with O, so we're going to go on next month to U. And our first U word that we're going to talk about and gain understanding of is understanding. So to understand and all of the nuances of the depth of understanding. Well, that'll be our first topic. And if any of you can think of some U words that have to do with courage, let me know because I'm having trouble coming up with too many, and I want to be able to have a rich discussion around a letter of the alphabet that doesn't have quite as many words connected to it as others. So we will move on to you in our look at courage in February. I mean, time goes by way too fast, way too fast. It's already the 5th of January, and I didn't we just have Christmas yesterday?
Yeah.
Oh, so we'll now go around and ask you how your time went.